My name is Ava Thompson, and I am 29 years old. Have you ever had someone steal your future while the people who were supposed to protect you stood by and allowed it to happen? Imagine spending your entire childhood believing your parents were helping you build a better life, only to discover that everything they promised had been handed to someone else. That is exactly what happened to me. My parents let my younger sister take the college fund they had spent years telling me was mine. They expected me to stay quiet, work harder, and somehow make it all work. What they never expected was that years later, I would become the owner of the dream home they had always wanted, and when they came asking for a place to live, I had a decision to make that none of us would ever forget. Growing up, my sister Chloe was the center of my parents' universe. If Chloe wanted something, she usually got it. If Chloe made a mistake, there was always an excuse. If I achieved something, it was expected. If she achieved something, it was celebrated. I noticed the difference when I was young, but I convinced myself it was not a big deal. After all, my parents always told me they loved us equally. And there was one thing that made me believe them: the college fund. Since I was a little girl, my parents talked about it constantly. They said they were setting aside money so I could attend a great university someday. Every birthday, every holiday, and every school achievement came with reminders that they were investing in my future. I trusted them completely. Because of that trust, I worked incredibly hard in school. I spent evenings studying while my friends went to parties. I joined clubs, volunteered, and maintained top grades. I believed all my sacrifices would eventually pay off. By my senior year of high school, I had been accepted into several excellent universities. The future looked bright. Then everything changed in a single conversation. One evening, my parents asked me to sit down at the kitchen table. The moment I saw their expressions, I knew something was wrong. My father looked uncomfortable. My mother refused to meet my eyes. Then my father cleared his throat and said they needed to tell me something important. What happened next felt like a nightmare. They explained that Chloe had recently decided to launch a business. According to them, she had an incredible opportunity. An opportunity that required money. A lot of money. Before I could even understand where the conversation was going, my mother admitted that most of my college fund had already been given to Chloe. I stared at her. I honestly thought I had heard her incorrectly. I asked what she meant. My father calmly explained that they believed Chloe's business had greater potential than my education. For several seconds, I could not speak. Years of promises. Years of trust. Gone. Just like that. I asked how much remained in the account. The answer made my stomach drop. Almost nothing. The fund I had spent my entire childhood believing would help pay for college had essentially disappeared. I looked at Chloe. She did not seem embarrassed. She did not seem guilty. Instead, she shrugged and said college students ended up with debt anyway. I felt like someone had punched me in the chest. My parents told me not to overreact. They said I was smart enough to find scholarships. They said Chloe needed help more than I did. They said family supported family. I remember leaving the room without saying another word. That night, I cried harder than I ever had before. Not because of the money, because of what the money represented. It represented trust, and my parents had destroyed it. For weeks, I felt angry, betrayed, and completely alone. But eventually I realized I had two choices. I could spend years feeling sorry for myself, or I could prove them wrong. I chose the second option. I applied for every scholarship I could find. I worked part-time after school. I filled out applications during lunch breaks and late at night. The process was exhausting. There were moments when I wanted to quit. Moments when I wondered whether my parents had permanently damaged my future. But I kept going. Slowly, things started changing. Scholarship offers arrived. Grant approvals followed. By the end of summer, I had secured enough financial aid to attend one of my preferred universities. The relief was overwhelming. Still, life was far from easy. While many students focused entirely on classes, I balanced academics with multiple jobs. I worked weekends. I worked evenings. I worked holidays. Every dollar mattered. Meanwhile, Chloe's business was struggling. Despite receiving money that had been intended for my education, she failed to manage it responsibly. Within 2 years, the business collapsed completely. The entire college fund was gone. Every penny. My parents acted disappointed, but they never apologized. Not once. Instead, they behaved as though the situation had simply happened, as though nobody was responsible. I graduated near the top of my class. At the ceremony, my parents proudly told relatives how successful I was. Listening to them felt almost surreal. The same people who had taken away my financial security now wanted credit for my achievements. I smiled politely and said nothing. After graduation, I accepted an entry-level position at a growing company. The salary was not impressive, but I saw potential. I worked harder than anyone around me. I arrived early, stayed late, volunteered for difficult assignments. Over time, promotions followed. My income increased. I learned about investing. I studied personal finance. I saved aggressively. Years passed. The life I had dreamed about slowly became reality. Then one afternoon, I found a property listing online. The moment I saw the photos, I was captivated. The house sat on beautiful land outside the city. It featured large windows, a spacious porch, and incredible views. It was the type of home my parents had always admired. The type of home they used to point at and say, maybe someday. After careful planning and several months of preparation, I purchased it. The day I received the keys remains one of the happiest moments of my life. Everything I had endured suddenly felt worthwhile. The house represented independence, security, freedom. Most importantly, it represented something I had built myself. A few weeks later, I shared several photos online. That was all it took. My parents called almost immediately. They wanted to visit. When they arrived, they could barely hide their excitement. My mother complimented every room. My father repeatedly talked about the property. Then he said something that caught my attention. This has always been our dream home. Our. Not yours. Not mine. Our. The comment stayed in my mind throughout the visit. Eventually, the real reason for their sudden interest became clear. They were having financial problems. Years of supporting Chloe had drained their savings. Her failed business had created additional expenses. Now they needed help. More specifically, they wanted to move into my house. At first, I thought they were joking. They were not. My parents genuinely expected me to open my doors and provide them with a comfortable place to live. They argued that family should support family. The irony was impossible to ignore. When I needed support, they had sacrificed my future. When Chloe needed support, they had sacrificed my future again. Now they wanted me to rescue them from the consequences of their own decisions. I asked a simple question. Why should I? The room became silent. My father looked irritated. My mother looked shocked. Neither expected resistance. I reminded them about the college fund. I reminded them about the scholarships, the jobs, the sacrifices, the years of struggle. Then I asked whether either of them had ever apologized. Neither answered. That silence told me everything. They did not regret what they had done. They only regretted needing something from me. Finally, I made my decision. I told them no. I would not let them move in. I would not give up the home I had worked so hard to earn. I would not continue paying for choices that were never mine. They left angry. Chloe sent messages accusing me of being selfish. I ignored them all. For the first time in my life, I chose myself instead of chasing their approval. Months later, I learned that my parents had sold their house and moved into a much smaller apartment. Some relatives criticized my decision. Others quietly admitted they understood it. As for me, I felt something unexpected. Peace. Not because my parents were struggling, not because I wanted revenge, but because I finally understood a lesson that changed my life forever. People who repeatedly choose others over you will often expect your help when their choices fail. That does not mean you owe them your future. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is protect the life you worked so hard to build. My parents gave my sister my college fund because they believed I would always find a way to survive. In the end, they were right. I did survive. I succeeded. And I built the dream they never thought I could reach without them.